The problem surrounding the disposal of green waste is that a lot of people don't think twice about throwing their organics in the garbage. The consequence of doing this is much greater than what most people perceive. Green waste disposed of properly diminishes the effects of greenhouse gas, water pollution, and air quality. In retrospect, some countries have achieved a profit from organics that would otherwise be wasted. There are so many ways to prevent the amount of green waste in landfills that are easily achievable, such as making a grocery list and not buying things that you won't use. Other ways to prevent waste include freezing big meals, preparing the food so you can just grab and go, and purchasing foods with a longer shelf life. On a larger scale, the laws surrounding proper disposal of green waste need to be formally set and enforced, as well as large budgets need to be allocated to waste management so that as a community, we can turn what once was a burden into something profitable and positive. This study has been conducted on ways in which we see problems and solutions within Halifax. The research has been done on the effects of green waste disposal throughout the city with a specific focus on condominiums and multi-unit housing. So what is green waste? Green waste is any form of natural organic food waste that is allowable for curbside pickup and consists of food scraps, twigs, grass, or plant clippings. Within the HRM, it is not permitted to put animal feces, plastic, and any kind of diapers in the green cart. In general, 75% of household waste can be recycled or composed, 40% of which can be disposed of in the green cart. Across the nation, cities are producing approximately 1.5 million tons of garbage each year. Of that, 40% is considered organic waste, while an additional 7% is yard waste, both of which can be placed in the green cart. The problem landscape looks into the key issues seen and how they are directly related to our city on the basis of a variety of green waste production through commercial, single-family homes, and multi-unit dwellings. The problems related to our study within the Halifax Regional Municipality and the effects of green waste fall into two broad categories. What happens when green waste gets to the landfill? Why green waste isn't being prevented from reaching the landfills? Globally, green waste accounts for 11% of all methane emissions. In addition, green waste hits the landfill and contributes to the production of leachate, a toxic liquid made from decomposed landfill matter. These are two main reasons why we should try to reduce the amount of green waste in the landfills. Methane gas production. This is one of the major problems that needs to be addressed when dealing with green waste, as it's such a large contributor to methane emissions. Methane is a very potent gas, showing that in the first 2 decades after its release. Methane is 84 times more potent than carbon dioxide, and 25% of the man-made global warming we're experiencing is caused by methane emissions. So, how can we prevent emissions from methane? Are there any opportunities here? Leachate. When water from rain and other sources enters a landfill, it runs through the decomposing mixture of plastics, metals, and organic matter to create a liquid mix of organic acids, aldehydes, and simple sugars called leachate. This liquid can escape into the environment through groundwater and can cause a whole range of problems, from more greenhouse gases to introducing carcinogens to the water supply. So, how is the production of leachate reduced or prevented? Can leachate be managed and disposed of properly? Are there any opportunities available here? Green bin use. This issue is in relation to condominiums, showing the effects due to limited supply of proper disposal units. In some cases, the limited supply of proper units of disposal is due to the lack of bins in and around the designated areas. A lot of condos and apartment buildings do not have individual bins for personal use, ultimately resulting in the lower rate of composting throughout the building. By not providing tenants with the proper bins, this shows a low end of corporate responsibility, which results in the harm of the environment. The HRM has a strategy set in place to provide for all the civilians. However, it hasn't been followed through in multi-unit housing and buildings. How can we encourage apartment buildings to dispose of green waste correctly? Are there any opportunities here? Solutions landscape. There are many solutions surrounding the problem of improper disposal of green waste that are currently in use in Canada and around the globe. Some pertain to the materials in the landfill and others to the prevention of green waste reaching the landfill in the first place. Below we have answered some of the questions raised in the problem landscape. Methane. How can we prevent emissions of methane? Are there any opportunities here? The answer to both of these questions is in the use of methane to produce power. Methane is a major component in natural gas, a fuel that can be used to produce electricity. Some places in Halifax already collect and sell methane from landfills. However, more could be done to both reduce the emissions from landfill and to capitalize on this potential lucrative resource. New Brunswick has been tapping into their landfill's methane for the past 3 years. As a result, they have made approximately $1 million in revenue from the use of the fuel throughout their province. Leachate. How is the production of leachate reduced or prevented? With regards to green waste, the best way to prevent or reduce the production of leachate is by correctly separating all forms of waste. This would drastically reduce the possibility of liquid waste mixing with other waste products such as plastic and metal matter that causes a toxic solution in chemical reaction of leachate. Can leachate be managed and disposed of properly? Regulations have been put in place to make sure that landfills have linings in them. These prevent the leachate from entering the water table and thus can stop it from causing harm. From landfills, if collected properly, it can be transported to water treatment facilities for sanitization. Are there any opportunities available here? Leachate itself contains dissolved methane which can be harvested through the process known as methane stripping. This process involves pumping bubbles through the leachate which binds to the methane and allows for more energy production and thus more revenue. Green bin use. How can we encourage apartment buildings to dispose of green waste correctly? Are there any opportunities here? Halifax introduced clear bags for households which add a degree of accountability to individuals' waste management. This resulted in a reduction of material going to the landfill by 31.4%. Clear bags don't have the same effect in apartment buildings as it is uncertain to know which garbage bag came from which unit. In fact, in similar cities, only 15% of apartment buildings use green waste disposal bins. Here is a solution on other places around the country and how they're creating success in green waste disposal. For example, Mayfair on the Green. A high-rise in Toronto successfully changed their garbage chute from regular garbage to handle exclusive amounts of green waste and use local educational resources to reduce their waste from one dumpster to a week to one dumpster every 2 months. This increased their recycling and composting statistics to 85% of their waste, up from an historical average of 26%. Gaps. Various gaps in the solutions to these problems include poor inventory management, when residents are unaware about what food they have on hand and buy extra at the grocery store. Improper food storage. This is when food isn't sealed properly and stored in an area that would result in the most effective use of the product. Lack of funding. In the Halifax Regional Municipality, the green car pickup budget was only $15,000 in 2018. This makes any innovation or solution almost impossible to carry out because it barely covers the essentials. Lessons and levers of change. The piece that is missing from the solution landscape is the programs that educate people on green waste management and alternatives. Whether it be composting at home, making food pellets out of green waste, or education on green waste and how it's affecting our planet. The programs in place that display these concerns are geared towards household, restaurants, and retailers. When 12.5% of Canada's whole population live in apartment buildings or similar, this becomes a big gap. There is not enough information about the importance of the impact of green waste on our environment, tax dollars, and atmosphere. This waste is filling up our landfills, which tax dollars pay for. If everyone disposed of the green waste properly, these tax dollars could be used for a number of additional things that people within our city and provinces could enjoy. In addition to that, humans would benefit greatly from the lack of toxicity within our air and waterways. In apartment buildings across the nation, there are rules regarding waste management. It is the landlord's responsibility to read you the lease agreement when you move in. They explain the guidelines on how to dispose of the green waste properly, but the gap here is that it's not enforced. A possible solution would be to have planned checks occasionally every few months. Management would typically provide a check of the bags to see if there was green waste, and if there's an issue, they can find the person who threw the bag out. In regards to the roles of the private and public sectors, the government and waste companies could see benefits in improving access to green waste disposal throughout the city, whether it be through implementation of systems already used around the globe, such as the generation of animal food pellets, or efforts to include solutions in newer buildings. These types of things will help in providing the municipality with better waste resolution and help the environment at the same time. Recommendations. After conducting research on the problems, solutions, and gaps within the green waste issue in the Halifax Regional Municipality, we have created a recommendation as to what we believe would be of best fit for our city and its citizens. There are market opportunities that could be available if a new system was created that would benefit our city directly, and the ways in which our civilians get rid of their waste. One previously discussed was to build, in addition, green waste chutes into new buildings. This idea was well liked as it would supply tenants with easier ways of disposal, and one in which they would put effort into using if it was within arm's reach of their own personal unit. As for current infrastructure, the best way to ensure that tenants are following standard guidelines would be to provide a check and supply a fine if people were not obeying the laws of the building and city. We believe that taking a few extra steps to properly separate and dispose of your green waste will greatly help in generating a better result for both our province and this country.